Hey y'all, Elizabeth Fitzpatrick here from Toned Collective. I'm so excited to go over this scale fluctuation training because one of the most ironic things is I really think that women over 30 actually see progress along their journey because let's face it, if you're here watching this, you probably care about your health and fitness, probably tracked your weight before, you probably work out, you're probably eating healthy. And I do think a lot of women, just like you, do see progress on their journey, but they don't know how to recognize that progress because they don't understand normal scale fluctuations. So they may see, a couple pounds up on the scale, think that what they're doing is not working, and then say, screw it, what is the point? And they just totally derail. They may go just like binge on food or just fall off their nutrition, eat whatever they want. They may go miss workouts because of it even though behind the scenes they were actually making progress. Again, they just didn't know how to recognize it. So my point of this training is I want you to feel a little bit more like my clients do here. This is one of my clients who she started tracking her weight every single day with me, which is actually what I do with my clients. And because she started doing that for months and months, she now has a good understanding of what her monthly fluctuations look like. So she expects exactly what to happen on the scale with her fluctuations during her fat loss, that it's brought her so much mental peace with the scale, so that she has actually been able to lose fat. She's at the lowest weight that she's seen since her wedding, since working with me. These are a couple of other really cool ones here. Lowest weight yet. I'm eating more. Love to see it. Lowest weight yet. I did a scale dance this morning. Liz, I had to do a double take at the number on the scale this morning. I stepped on the scale twice because I couldn't believe it. I'm literally so mind blown right now. So proud of myself. I already hit and surpassed my first weight goal. This is the coolest. This is how I want you to feel, because I want you to understand the scale and understand what is normal with the scale. A couple of other cool things here. One belief that my program, or sorry, that one of my clients had mentioned that she wished she could go back and tell herself before joining the program. It is possible to step on the scale and belly fat from increasing even after 45. So she's saying it's possible to step on the scale and see the weight actually go down and actually lose the belly fat after the age of 45. And what a relief to get on the scale this morning and see the same weight after a weekend trip. So we're going to dive deeper into really everything about the scale. So like I mentioned, ironically enough, I think a lot of women actually are seeing progress behind the scenes. They just don't know how to recognize progress. And that's actually what derails them from just their own fat loss journey. Weight fluctuations are not just normal, they are inevitable, meaning they will happen. They are an unavoidable part of your fat loss journey. And so if you do not learn how to be okay with them, then you're just always going to struggle with them, and they will always be one of the things that causes you to fall off. So let's talk about what is normal for scale fluctuations. Let me preface with, I'm going to give you guys a bunch of poundage numbers, and here in a minute too, I'm going to get into some percentages. None of this is exact, okay? Everyone is so different, so I cannot give exact numbers. So all of these numbers here are really rough estimations, but I more so just want you guys to really get a good grasp, like a good picture of roughly what these types of things look like. So anywhere from 2 to 5-ish pounds, you could step on the scale one day, step on the scale the next day, and your weight fluctuate anywhere from 2 to 5-ish pounds. If you weigh over 200 pounds, it might be closer to like 4 to 8-ish pounds. So let's talk about then what your weight is actually made up of. So we have water. So water is 45 to 65% of your weight. We have fat, which is adipose tissue. This is going to vary very drastically woman to woman. Okay, so I look at essential fat, like the fat you need to survive, right? This is about 10 to 13% of your weight. For athletes, and when I say essential fat, like this number is actually included in these, right? So athletes might be somewhere from like 14 to 17%. Fit women might be somewhere from, 17 to 21. Healthy to average, kind of between like 22 to 25. Slightly above average, but healthy, 25 to 30. Overweight, 30 to 35. And then obese, 35%. So that would mean 35% of your weight is body fat, right? So in addition to water and fat, we also have protein. So protein can make up our muscles, our organs, our skin, our connective tissue, enzymes, and this might be 15 to 20% of your body weight. A lot of this is going to be that skeletal muscle, some of your lean mass. Some of our lean mass is also made up of other things as well, though. So more muscular people sit on the higher end, and note that muscle itself is about 75% water. So protein and water, and some of these things are actually going to overlap. Then we also have minerals. So this is going to be mostly bone, which could be 4 to 6% of our body weight, something around there. Majority of bone is minerals, so calcium, phosphorus. We also have minerals in the blood and tissues. And bone mass is pretty stable day to day, or really over long periods of time as well. So we also have glycogen, which is stored carbohydrates. So this is going to be a smaller percent, maybe 1 to 2% of your body weight. A lot of this is going to come from carbs that are stored in your muscle or in your liver. It punches above its weight on the scale because each gram binds about 3 grams of water. So when you shift your carb intake, you may notice some fluctuations on the scale as well because of that. So everything else, we've got blood volume, which could be 7 to 8% of your weight. We have digestive contents, undigested food, waste, etc. Air in your lungs, gas in your gut. It's not going to be really anything worth noting on the scale. But so you can tell, we have so many different factors that affect the scale, right? The scale is not just fat. And so the reason I wanted to list all this out is because it's so easy to step on the scale one day and then step on the scale the next day, see something a little higher and be like, I've gained fat. But in reality, the scale is made up of all of these things, everything inside of our body, right? So some factors that affect your weight fluctuations, and again, these are just like really rough estimates. This is not like a fully scientific, accurate number. So just keep that in mind. And this is a rough range. So we have water and fluid balance. So sodium intake could affect our weight on the scale anywhere from like 1 to 4 pounds. Hydration could be 1 to 5 pounds. Carb intake could be 1 to 4-ish. Alcohol, 1 to 4-ish. Unprocessed fluids that you just drink, 1 to 2. Hot and humid weather could actually be 1 to 3. Food and digestion. So food currently in your digestive tract could be, 1 to 4 pounds. Large heavy meal the day before, 1 to 3. Fiber or gut bulk, 0.5 to 2, maybe even a little bit more actually. Constipation versus bowel movement, 0.5 to 4 pounds. Gas and bloating might be under 1, but gas and bloating are going to look and feel like a lot more. Hormones and cycle. So yeah, premenstrual or menstruation retention, 2 to 6 pounds. Ovulation shifts, 1 to 2. Cortisol from stress, 1 to 3. Hormone therapy or birth control, 1 to 4. Sleep and stress, poor sleep or high cortisol could be a 1 to 2 pound fluctuation. Medications, 1 to 5 pounds, maybe even more. Measurement conditions. So this is really important here. So the time of day matters significantly. You cannot compare your weight on the scale from like the morning to evening. If you're going to compare, we typically always want to do the morning after we go to the bathroom. So after a bowel movement, which ideally, by the way, we should be having bowel movements every single morning around the same time of day. So ideally, you're weighing yourself at the same time of day after going to the bathroom before consuming any food or really even like any water as well, if we want to be super accurate with it. So if you were to compare yourself on the scale morning to evening, you could see anywhere from like a 2 to 8 pound fluctuation. Clothing, right? 0.5 to 5. Sometimes I think we hop on the scale with like our shoes on or, clothes or whatever. If you're at the gym, right, in the locker room and you want to hop on the scale and you're wearing your shoes, that's going to affect things. The other thing is like if you are using different scales, you actually cannot compare your weight across different scales because they are all calibrated just a little differently. So that fluctuation alone could be anywhere from 0.5 to 5 pounds, right? Travel. So air travel retention could be 2 to 5 pounds, and salt heavy travel meals, 1 to 6 pounds. So all of this to say, there are so many factors that will affect your scale fluctuations on any given day. So we need to release the idea that if you step on the scale on, on a Tuesday, let's say on a Monday for easy math, you were 150 and then Tuesday you were 152. That does not mean, oh, my plan is not working. That means your normal fluctuations could be because of any of these things, right? So let's go to scale expectations for fat loss. So when we're talking specifically about how much fat should we be losing on any given week, right? Typically for fat loss, we're looking at a 0.5 to a 2 pound loss per week. Generally, for me and my clients, I'm aiming for a 1 pound loss per week. Sometimes we aim a little higher if your starting weight is much higher. But that kind of just depends. Okay, so we are going to come down to this chart here, which is showing, this is one of my clients. This is her 6-month fat loss progression. So you can see she was kind of fluctuating above 200 pounds and then kind of dipped right a hair below 180 within 6 months, which is really awesome. So obviously, when we look at this, we're like, wow, start to finish, this went down significantly. This is awesome progress, right? This is what progress really looks like when we zoom out. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and we can see the 3-month fat loss progress on her graph zoomed in. Okay, when we zoom in to 3 months, we can see that there's actually a lot more of these fluctuations, but it is still pretty easy to be like, oh, wow, start to finish, look at how much her weight went down within a 3-month time frame. Now, if we zoom in a little bit more, okay, now we're looking at 1-month progress. So here we can see, okay, wow, weight was really coming down. So if you just envision her day to day, right? She's getting on the scale. Okay, cool. We're seeing progress. Wow, it's actually going down. But then you can see it, this part of her cycle, it jumps up significantly. This is 4 pounds. Sometimes clients will hang out here for a while. Sometimes they will keep climbing and then they come down again. But you can imagine it would be very easy to get frustrated at this point when you just saw all this progress and then boop, the weight goes up, right? This was like kind of 183, then boop, it's up to 186, right? It's easy to be like, oh no, am I not seeing progress? Same thing here, right? The 183 to 187 jump. It's so easy to be like, oh no, I'm going backwards. But this is all normal fluctuation. So if she allowed this to throw her off, then she would have never seen this 6-month progression, right? Because again, we have to realize the scale is going to fluctuate up to 5 pounds on any given month. So I've got another example here. So this is a different client, right? Same thing here, 6-month fat loss progression. Wow, this looks incredible. Also roughly about 20 pounds down here in this time frame. If we zoom into the 3-month progression, amazing. Still looks like really great progress, but we do see that there's actually a lot more ups and downs. And then here, if we zoom in on the 1 month, you can imagine on her day to day, okay, she's at like 208, then she sees, 210, then she sees 212. Oh no, are things going backwards? Then it drops to, 209, but then it comes up to almost 213, right? So it's easy to think, whoa, start of the month, she's at like 208, and then she went all the way up to 213, right? Same thing here. She could look at this in her day to day and think, oh no, am I not seeing progress? Is my plan not working? But again, this is normal, right? But if she sticks it out, we see all the way at the end of the month, she gets below 206. So this is progress, right? So a couple of considerations is like, even if you lost just 0.5 pounds, or even if you lost just 1 pound in a month time frame, that is still progress, right? There are going to be some months throughout the year, because if we look at a calendar year, there's 52 weeks in a year. Well, we're not going to be losing fat typically every single one of those 52 weeks of the year. So there are going to be some months where fat loss is a little bit slower, right? And so especially if it's like November or December, right? Maybe those are like historically months that you gain weight. Okay, well, 0.5 pound fat loss during a month that you normally gain weight is incredible progress. Even if your weight stayed the same and you just maintained it, that is incredible progress during a month where you historically actually gain weight, right? Another factor is that sometimes you may gain a little bit of weight, because when we're talking about the long game and we're looking at things over the course of a year, again, every single month, we may not be fully losing, because is that realistic with our actual lives and our day to day, right? If you're traveling, you're on a vacation, again, it's the holidays, maybe you gain a little bit back, but when you zoom out and look at 6-month progression or 12-month progression, you can still see massive, massive shifts and trends like this. Another example that I really want to talk about is, let's say, just for easy math, your weight is 150 and you want to get to, I don't know, 130. Okay. So if we're talking about this normal fluctuation, you're going to fluctuate anywhere from like 2 to 5 pounds. That means if your weight is 150, you could see 155 as your high weight, maybe 150 is your low weight. Let's call it that. And you fluctuate anywhere between 150 to 155. Now, let's say you are losing 1 pound of body fat per week. So that means in 4 weeks, your weight is now going to fluctuate from 146 to 151. But let's say you take your weight at the start of the month and your weight is 150. You just happen to be on a low day. And then you take your weight at the end of the month and it's 151. You just happen to be on a high day. You are going to think, oh my gosh, I gained weight. This program is not working. But in reality, you lost 4 pounds of body fat and you're just riding those normal fluctuations, right? So it's so easy for us to get lost in the day-to-day of the scale. I think the scale is massively important if you're wanting to lose fat, especially you're wanting to lose more than like 10, 15 pounds. It is such a helpful tool. I never want our mindset to derail us from using a tool that is helpful along the journey. However, you also have to understand that tool very well if you're going to use it, which is why I'm talking about this and doing this training, because it's so important to realize that we have to trust the process. We have to keep going. And the only way to really effectively use this tool is over long periods of time, long stretches of time, not just day to day to day to day, right? So I'm going to come back down here and just show you guys a couple of client success stories. So this client working with me went from 267 pounds to 129. So she lost 138 over a 2-year period working with me using this method. So I'm going to show you guys another client example of a client who I actually had her eat more and work out less because she was over exercising and under eating. And she actually lost 15 pounds and got super lean. She started hitting PRs in her runs for the first time in 15 years. I have a whole nother video about it because it's such an awesome transformation. So this is her here. Whoops, let's move that down. But you can see this is so awesome. And she's been taking her weight daily on the scale. It fluctuates a lot because she didn't have quite as much body fat to lose, 15 pounds, right? And so she's also put on a significant amount of muscle. So again, it's not something I really discuss here, but if you're gaining muscle and losing fat at the same time, it can very often look like the weight on the scale is not moving at all, but that would be called body recomposition, which I'm going to actually do a whole nother video on. So I'm not going to discuss that here. But I've got another client who is a brand new mom. She lost 20 pounds while retaining her lean tissue in the 16 weeks working with me, got down to almost her wedding weight. So again, incredible progress here. You can see my own transformation. I've lost over 40 pounds myself. And truly the way I did it is by weighing myself daily and understanding my own bodily trends and knowing that there are going to be certain times of my monthly cycle that the weight is going to fluctuate. But if you stick to the plan, you trust the process, you don't let the day-to-day fluctuations get to you, then you can use the scale as a very effective tool to help you in your fat loss journey. So if you don't already, you should definitely go follow me on Instagram. This is my handle, Elizabeth Fitsness, because my last name is Fitzpatrick. So I thought that was a cute little play. But I hope that you found this training helpful, and I hope that you can use the scale to your benefit for your fat loss journey without allowing it to mess with you mentally and allowing it to completely derail you, because now you should have a better understanding of how normal scale fluctuations work. So thank you so much for joining me today. I will talk to you all soon, hopefully. Bye.